Um, alrighty. Gonna get here just a moment. We got another quality episode coming up here on the podcast. This should be a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Reflection and Projection for Sports podcast with Simon Burtz. We thank you all for taking an hour out of your time and tuning into the show, where today we will be reflecting on 4 pieces of sports news, but it's 2 different sports today because football is all over the place. And it's going to be a bunch of the biggest things happening in the current world of sports. I don't know how many of those bunch of things are actually going to be said. There's going to be little bits of things here and there that I know people have been wanting to hear. But first of all, we got to start off with a joke. Why couldn't the all-star football player listen to music? Because he broke all the records. Laugh away, y'all. All right, so now we're going to get a little bit more serious here. The first thing that I want to discuss this morning is Ben Johnson after the win against Green Bay. So, yes, the Bears made a huge comeback against the Packers, but the thing that I'm concerned about is obviously Ben Johnson's behavior when he shook Matt LaFleur's hand. Ran by him, couldn't keep his emotions intact. Got to stay poised if you're a head coach. And that sportsmanship is one of the most important and impactful things when communicating with these people. So just you go back to the clip. I mean, look, he did it twice too. He did it back in week 14, beginning of December, where Ben Johnson runs up the alleyway, shakes Matt LaFleur's hand, and instead of saying, "Hey, good game, wish the best in your future endeavors, all good, like great game, heck of a team," instead he just ran by, and couldn't control his emotions, did a little bit of I don't even know if it was a handshake or not, and then ran away and just couldn't control himself. I mean, that's just, when I watch that kind of thing, it makes me kind of disappointed when it comes to the word leadership. Because when I think of a good coach in the National Football League or any professional sports league, I think of leadership. Just whenever I think about the best coaches, I think of good leaders. I think of poised young gentlemen, and clearly Ben Johnson is not that. I don't like how he, well, first of all, absolutely treat it like a rival. But, back in the day, I learned that there are two types of, I'm trying to find the word for it, but like there are phrases and words that are considered think it's and say it's. I think some of the things, the F the Packers and the F thems, I think those are more of think it's rather than say it's. The head coaches, when they're in the professional environment, you should refrain yourself from saying things like that, and you should only do or say things that are considered quote unquote say it's. You could have said something like, "Oh, great game. You guys are a heck of a team. I'm excited to see where you go in the future," instead of "let's effing go" and just running by Matt LaFleur, and it's just unacceptable. This not only are we talking about the NFL here, but this reminds me of Duke UNC back in 2022. This was Coach K's final game at Cameron. They just wouldn't shake hands with the Carolina players at all. See, I talk about that with my family all the time. This moment in college basketball where Hubert Davis and Krzyzewski, you look at their players and they just walk away to the locker room and they don't exchange words and shake hands with each other. And the bottom line there is that is just bad sportsmanship. You've got to hold yourselves and your players accountable. You've got to show your professionalism and your poise. Instead, you just go to the locker room. And I just think that's sad. It's not good for the sport. It doesn't matter what sport you're talking about. It doesn't matter if it's pro or college or any high school or rec league. It just does not matter. You've got to do better than that. It's some of the basic things you learn. And I can't even tell you how young I was when I learned that good sportsmanship is important. I was most likely in my single digit years if I had to predict. But when I look at when I look at a coach like this, when I look at Ben Johnson and that moment, I'm talking about how I'm concerned for the young players on that Bears team. I'm concerned. So my concern for these young Bear players, I'm not sure if you guys can agree or disagree with me here, but so if you're a young player in college or pro, like you look at some of the Romeo Donzes, some of the Caleb Williams on the Bears, these young players, they are going through a coach who is consistently acting like this, and that the coaches you have in your younger years can easily determine the person/player you're going to be throughout your entire career. And I just, if I was on the Bears right now and I had a coach like that, I would be a little concerned for myself. I would want to either talk to Ben Johnson or I would want to talk to the owner or something. And, so, well, first off, obviously, you gotta Ben Johnson. Yes, it's a rival. Bears-Packers. That's a rival that goes back a long time. Can't even tell you how long. It definitely goes past the Bears-Packers rivalry. That goes back to before the first Super Bowl. And it's fine to treat it like a rivalry, but when you say things like that online, then it's going to simultaneously spark attention, and it's going to spark attention to the point where even it's going to get to you as a head coach, and I know the head coach probably won't see a lot of these comments about hey, Coach Johnson, please grow up or stop doing that kind of thing. He'll probably hear it somewhere, and it's okay for Johnson to hype his players up in the locker room like he's been doing, but just overall saying things that he has been saying, I just don't think it's okay as a head coach. I think you need to, I think it's important that you show your maturity as a head coach. And so, like I said, if I was the owner, and okay, before I move on to the next topic, if I was the owner of the Bears, I know the fans would hate me for it. I'm not gonna let Ben go just yet. Well, we obviously, in terms of like how good he is as a coach and knowing the game and getting all these wins, don't fire him. But I think from a leadership standpoint and a maturity standpoint, I'm like, we've got some problems with this coach. And I definitely want to if I was the owner, I would want to give Ben Johnson some sort of warning here. I really think it's important that coach understands that the way he's acting it's a problem. And you look at some of the other coaches in professional sports. you look at some coaches that are just not the best people as people. You're looking at coaches who you're looking at coaches who are, like I said, not the greatest people, but would not say things like F the Packers and F them online or that kind of thing. I don't think it's right for a coach to do that. And absolutely, like I said, before I move on, just a second here, I really think that it's important to show concern for the young players on the team, because I don't want them to, like, I don't want Caleb Williams to turn into someone who says the F word online all the time, and that kind of thing. All right, so we're definitely not going away from football just yet, but this is pretty. This is, as a Panthers fan, this is a pretty great topic that I want to mention right now. The San Francisco 49ers go into Lincoln Financial Field and upset the Eagles 23-19. The defending champs are gone. And what is next in Jeffrey Lurie's organization? So, okay, so when I'm going into this Niners-Eagles game, I'm thinking this Niners team is banged up pretty significantly. They've got a whole bunch of key players on their team that are not in great shape, and Philly's probably going to go in there and defensively get the job done. Oh no, their offense was doing what they have been doing all season, and just doing the same old plays that they've been doing all season, a la there's a reason why Kevin Patullo is not the offensive coordinator anymore. So first of all, I really do think that the offense for Philly has been an absolute joke. I really think that after all these years with the Eagles being better than the Panthers, I especially on offense, I can safely say that Carolina's offense was a lot better than Philly's this year. If I'm not mistaken, I know Tet McMillan was an absolute beast for us. And Bryce Young in some of these games looked more poised and more of a leader than I would have ever expected him to be. But and let me go off here and say these Niner players. Let me just say, well, Fred Warner, they're talking about it. He's practicing. He might be ready for a potential NFC Championship game. But yep, like the Eagles are playing against a team with no Fred Warner, no Brendan Ayuk, no Nick Bosa, no Michael Williams, no Trent Williams, no Ricky Pearsall. Where's D. Winters? And Purdy's playing through a toe injury. McCaffrey's playing through a back injury that he's been dealing with for quite a while. And Kittle, in all seriousness, that's a tough loss for the Niners. George Kittle tearing his Achilles, and Achilles, it's just like Kittle, one of the greatest tight ends in football. Also just knows what being a good player is like. But I know I mentioned all those players, and the Eagles are playing against a Niner team without all those players, yet they still lose. They still lose. It doesn't matter if they only lost by 4, 3, 2, or 1 point. What matters is the Eagles' offense absolutely failed them like they've been doing, which has been a microcosm of the 25-26 Eagles offense. So, absolutely, the Eagles, when it comes to their inconsistency, it doesn't matter what plays you run and how much they are working in a game. It doesn't matter if a lot of the time you have a play where it's like, oh, you're getting 30 to 40 yards every time you get this, that you use this play. Come on, change it up. It does not matter. The defense will figure you out. Someone as bad as the Bills' run defense will figure you out. It does not matter. And the best part about this was the controversy when it comes to the man who said, "Oh, give me the ball, please," and then he goes ahead and drops it a bunch, Mr. AJ Brown. AJ, you knew what you did. You know what you're asking for. You know you're gonna get it in return. So you're looking at AJ Brown. You're probably I know he was asking for it. And going into this game, you're probably thinking, we got to use our best players possible. And clearly, A.J. Brown was probably one of the worst players on the field in that game. Look at this. Oh, 2nd and 4. A long throw. Niners secondary a little slow to get coverage on A.J. Whoop. A.J. drops it. There goes $32 million. Oh, Niners bring the blitz. 3rd and 9 from the 36. A.J. Brown, he's too slow. Not paying attention on the go route. Oh, he drops it. There goes $32 million. Niners bring the blitz. 3rd and 5. Browns open at midfield. Oh, there goes $32 million. So, AJ, ask and you shall receive, buddy boy. AJ Brown has said many little things. Please give me the ball. Please give me the ball. Please give me the ball. Ask and you shall receive. 3 of the most crucial plays in the game. He drops it, and the Eagle fans do what they always do and boo their own team like it's going to help them win the game at all. And at the same time, I think it's kind of funny that they do that. But that's just Eagle fans in general. There's just absolutely no way you're going to change them. But when it comes to Nick Sirianni and A.J. Brown, after they got into it on the sideline, I don't care what was said. What I care about is that Nick Sirianni and A.J. Brown, yes, they had a little bit of an era going in Philly, but I think that era ends now. I really think that it would be right for A.J. Brown. You're not going to fire Nick Sirianni. At this point, A.J. Brown's just got to go. He really does. I'm looking back at the beginning of the season and obviously throughout the course of last year, I'm like, A.J. Brown might be one of the best receivers in the league. Oh, let's fast forward to today. Now he's being a brat and consistently asking for the ball and keeps dropping it. I think it's a form of impatience. And you look at the Eagles' offense in general. Let's not forget about those plays that were outside of A.J. Brown either. Oh, he passed to Goddard on 3rd and 19, and it only gets you like 5 yards. Saquon on 3rd and 3. I don't know how he drops that. It was just a little pass to Hurts's right. Oh, and the play with 3.5 left in the 3rd. Saquon runs up the middle on 2nd and 10 and into traffic and falls. Like, what are we doing? Like, come on. What are we doing? Patullo, you know that there's even moments where Hurts was saying it and had his facial reactions on the sideline. Why are we running this play? Huh? There were obviously questions from the players and especially Jalen Hurts. Why are we running this play? At just those facial reactions every time, it just shows what's been happening in that offensive room all season long. And like I said, there's a reason why they fired Patullo yesterday. There's a reason why Patullo was just not. Well, first off, I wonder where Patullo's next job is going to be. And I don't care what kind of job it is. I would rather not have him in Carolina. If he gets like a head coaching job at Atlanta, which is absolutely not going to happen, I would love that. But I really don't know. Patullo's definitely not getting a head coaching job anywhere. But well, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I really don't know what's going to happen with Patullo. I know that there's a lot of teams who absolutely just don't want him. If I'm mentioning teams like the Falcons, my biggest concern is potentially getting John Harbaugh. I'm a Panther fan, and if John Harbaugh goes to the Falcons out of the blink of an eye, they're going to be one of the better teams in our division, and they're probably going to make the playoffs every single year, and Bijan's just going to cook the living crap out of everybody. My biggest thing with Patullo is the fact that you're working for an Eagles, or not just Eagles, you're working for a professional sports organization. You're working as the offensive coordinator, which means you have the responsibility of getting creative and innovative and just having fun with working on your offense and drawing up plays that people want to watch. Maybe take a little more time to get creative. I'm not saying that being an offensive coordinator is an easy job. What I'm saying is that just taking the time and actually putting in effort to actually do something is not hard. Just either getting out a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, or going on your computer and maybe doing some brainstorming about ideas of what you want your offense to do. I think just getting the paper and the pencil and writing things down, and little plays about, I just don't think it's that hard. And there were, I'm trying to remember, was it I don't know, there were 7 different plays that Hurts lined up to in that game, but what really disappoints me is that was the number, because you want it bigger. You want as an offense, you want the defense to make your offense you want your offense to be as unpredictable as you possibly can. Well, obviously, Eagle fans have known this throughout the course of the season, but Patullo was the absolute opposite of that. And so, and a couple things before I move on here, a couple things that guys like Jalen Hurts could have done. So yeah, if you're Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley or anybody that's considered a leader for this Eagles offense, you could have either convinced Patullo to work with you and collaborate together and potentially work on more offensive plays. You could either convince these guys to, or you could either convince your offensive coordinator, hey, let's work on some more plays, let's do this and that. Or if that doesn't work, maybe if you know that your coordinator isn't doing well this year and you still want to get better, maybe as a team, talk to each other and actually make plays for yourself. Because if Patullo isn't going to do anything, then where's your offense going to go? It's just it's not just about the work on the gridiron, it's about the work off the field as well. It's you as a team, I think it's absolutely necessary that you get together as an offense and you brainstorm plays, make the plays happen, put it on display in practice, and then carry that up into games, making it unpredictable. And if Patullo somehow likes it, maybe 1 in a million chance he's gonna like it. It's too late to do that now, but if the next offensive coordinator is not amazing, maybe you could convince him to do that, especially if you're you feel like you're in a position of, oh gosh, we are lacking on offensive plays, we need more plays, we don't have enough, and it's just, that's kind of how that works. And just I really think it was a very interesting thing to talk about when it comes to the Eagles and what I believe that I really think the Eagles are capable of so much more. I know I don't like them as a Panthers fan. I absolutely don't like the Eagles, but if I'm being real here, I think that Philly is more capable of a lot of things than I can even imagine. Especially that defense. Their defense didn't lose them anything. Don't count the flea flicker with Jawan Jennings and McCaffrey. That was just a tough play. But a lot of what the Eagles defense did was not even that bad. It was all the offense. And you're just running the same plays over and over again. It just gets boring and not fun to watch. Okay, so with that being said, we are going to go into break here for just a few minutes because a guy like me, as much as I've got a lot to say, I'm a human being and I need water, and I'll be just right back for more. And absolutely, the thing you should not do is go away. All right? Don't go away. Keep eating your popcorn and have fun. See you back in a minute. Alrighty, we are back for segment number 2 of today's show. We're going to dive more into the Panthers, and then I am going to go into my predictions for round 2 of the playoffs, because it's only right that round 2 gets predictions if round 1 is going to get predictions. So the Panthers season has sadly come to an end after a heartbreaking loss on Saturday, 34-31 over the Rams. Man, I thought we had them a second time. But the main thing to take away is I'm proud of this Panthers team. Look at, like, if you're looking back at last season, it's you see the comeback that we've made from being the worst team and probably one of the worst teams I think football has ever seen to this year where we win almost half of our games. But And not only that, but over the course of this season, I'm just so proud of this team and how far we've come, and how, and just, when Bryce Young and how much of a leader he's become, and all positive, and I just love to see it. So yes, that even though it's sad that our season's over, I'm absolutely excited about what the future of this team holds. Bryce, McMillan, Dowdle, Hubbard, Coker, like this core, I think has at least a few years of being a strong core. And just the fact that in the first place, we weren't even supposed to make the playoffs. Like I'm watching, like after I'm done watching the Panthers Patriots game at the end of September, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be a repeat of 24-25, where we're gonna be one of the worst teams in the league. Especially after Drake May and the Patriots absolutely obliterated us. And like, if we had to lose in the first round, I wouldn't mind losing a game like this, as opposed to when the Bills or the Seahawks played us earlier this year and absolutely whooped us. So, like, you Bills 40-9, Seahawks almost 20 points. Like, I'd rather lose by 3 points than by 20 or 30. Okay? That's pretty self-explanatory. It's just I can't really think of anything in particular that my team could have done differently in this Rams-Panthers playoff game, as opposed to a few boneheaded plays. I know Nick Scott had that dumb penalty, that dumb roughness pass interference penalty. It's just I know that those plays are going to happen. Like, it's frustrating. Guys like him and J.C. Horn are just consistently making dumb plays. That's something that we're going to have to be looking at consistently as a group, just limiting these dumb penalties. I know the last few years I've been constantly talking about how that needs to get fixed. But in this game, the offense looked great. Knowing our personnel benefited us significantly. What I mean by personnel in this context is we know how to come back. Like, the Rams had a 20, almost 15, 20 some point lead, and the Panthers, even if they don't win, they know how to come back and make it a game. All right? That's what I mean by personnel in this context, and it benefited us significantly despite the loss. Defense made some big plays throughout the game. And when I'm looking at the offense, I'm not holding my breath when Bryce throws deep passes. I held my breath every single time Cam Newton threw a deep pass. I'm not kidding. Bryce Young has to legitimately be the first Panthers quarterback I can trust on the deep ball. Like, I think he's the first quarterback I can trust on the deep ball since Jake Delhomme, or even before that. Like, Cam Newton and every quarterback that you're also counting Cam Newton and every quarterback we have had before Bryce Young, I don't think any of them could throw any deep pass whatsoever. Funny enough, I don't even think I can name every single quarterback we've had since then, just because we haven't been the best team lately before this season. What I will mention when it comes to overall, I know I talked about Ben Johnson earlier, but when I'm looking at a good coach, I think of someone who's always positive and is definitely eager to have leadership and is just always calm and never gets antsy about anything. I'm talking about a guy who's just I'm talking about Dave Canales. Like, he's always positive, always just never raises his voice about anything. And I think just all the positivity that he has as a coach is just phenomenal. And I absolutely trust him. I know I know that a few of his fourth down play calls scare me sometimes. I know he and McVay are obviously two of the most aggressive play callers in this league. But when I know I watch football a lot, but you're looking at an NFL coach. I know, like I said, some of his fourth down calls scare me. I gotta just put my trust in him. I really do. Like, just the ability to not show fear and in what when it comes to going for these things on fourth down, you don't expect to be 100% on fourth down. You don't expect some head coaches, obviously, to call it to also, the thing that I like about coaches like Canales and coaches like McVay when it comes to fourth down is that some of these more conservative coaches, I think these more aggressive coaches, they're going to turn out to have a lot more experience. It's going to show that they have a lot more experience on fourth down and that they have learned so much more because they've decided to go for it more on fourth down. The more familiar you are when it comes to these fourth down complex situations, the more comfortable you're going to be in those fourth down situations. However, when it comes to the amount of times you go for it on fourth down, especially when you're looking at the situation you're currently in the game, there's boundary lines to it. Like, there's times like, okay, maybe we could go for it, or maybe not here. Like, maybe we could, sometimes, maybe let's just kick this away and just put trust in our defense here. Especially if the offense looks gassed and you know that the defense is in a prime moment, put your defense out there and put your absolute full faith in them. Because look at this Panthers defense, guys. They have come along so much since last season. Derek Brown was probably one of the biggest reasons why we were the worst defensive team football has ever seen. That's not the Bengals. I think another reason is J.C. Horn staying off the injured list for a good portion of this season, or if not all of this season. I think some of these things are making such a big impact. I know I keep talking about that Carolina is just like the 49ers in terms of always having guys banged up and all of that. But also you look at guys like Roseboom, you look at guys like Morig, you look at guys like Scorton, you look at guys like Mike Jackson. All these guys at the most unexpected times are making big plays. And I know I said it on the last episode, I am a little disappointed. I wish we would smother Matt Stafford a little more. But the fact that we made it, the game that we made it at the end, I'm overall very proud, even though we lost. And here, before I move on to college basketball, there are some crazy takes here that you guys, that I probably would have never expected to say, but I think out of all the teams that lost in the first round of the playoffs, I think the Carolina Panthers were the best team in that category. I know you guys are going to chat at me saying, whoa, where'd the Packers go? I know they lost I know the Packers lost and their lead, and they blew a 21-3 lead, but my goodness, I thought the Panthers, out of every team that lost, I really think Carolina was the best team. They made it a game. They never gave up. They adjusted accordingly. They made plays when they needed to. And I'm really impressed with Carolina. You look at even like the Eagles and the Steelers, y'all, Carolina looked so much better in their round one game. Come on now. Even the Jaguars. I know that Buffalo's defense surprised us and really came out on top. But sheesh. I really thought Carolina looked so much better. I don't know about a lot better than the Jaguars, but I think overall, if someone asked me rank the teams in that lost in the first round of the playoffs, I think Carolina's in the first round of play. Yeah, I think Carolina's number one in that category. I really do. And to top it off and finish off this podcast, George Mason defeats VCU for the first time in 5 years and the first time at EBA since 2016. I know I said EBA. For those of you who are unfamiliar with George Mason University, the basketball arena we call it EBA, but it is called Eagle Bank Arena. Yes, I am a George Mason student, for those of you who do not know. So, okay. Yes, this was a huge win for the Patriots, and I'm not kidding you. So just overall, I am a junior now, and this is my third year. Not only that, but this is Tony Skinn's third year as head coach. I am really impressed with how Tony Skinn has come about in his first 3 years as a head coach, y'all. I know he's 17-1 right now, but it's gonna be 3 years in a row, first 3 years as head coach, where he gets 20-plus wins in the regular season. I'm just so impressed with how much of a leader he is, how great of a coach he is, and that a team like George Mason finds the most awkward and funky ways to win that even I can't explain when watching games. Like, I watched the Loyola game last night, and I was everything moves so fast, I can't even explain how Mason won that game. Then there's things like the Penn game. There's things like the Loyola Maryland game, especially that game where Loyola hit 13 threes. I can't explain to you how they won that game. But obviously I know that Coach Skinn is consistently talking about this defense and how just that they can be so much better. They've gotten better since before. You compare before Christmas to now. I think the defense has gotten a little bit better. But then they give up. They give up 70 some points to Loyola. I know it's on their home floor, but Tony is definitely working with the guys to limit those points and to keep their opponents at 50 and 60 points. So then they're just, when you're looking at a team like George Mason, in addition, you're looking at, think about how many teams in college basketball or anywhere have either one or two players that they rely on to get as many points a game as possible. But then you have a school like George Mason who approaches the game in a completely different way. It's just that, it's just at the most unexpected time. I know that Corey Mincy is leading the team in average points per game and average steals per game and all that, but he's not the guy that steps up every single night. Masai Troutman, 4 for 5 from 3. Holy cow, what a night he had last night. And then there's times there were games I'm trying to remember what game it was. I think it was the LaSalle game where out of nowhere, Emmanuel Kanga absolutely steps up. You've got the Rhode Island game. Stas comes up and gets almost 20 points. And you have to appreciate that the depth that this team has, and that on any given night, any of these guys are going to step up. I mean, look at VCU, man. Like, just that VCU game, if Fat Hill didn't do what he did, we probably would not have won that game. 16 points, got a few key rebounds. And I think when it comes to just the explosiveness, I think Fat is one of my favorite players to watch on that team. Just because you obviously have a George Mason team right now who's very, very good at getting and to the basket, driving, drawing fouls, getting to the free throw line. But then you have a guy like Fat Hill, where I don't know if you have to really work on that, the fundamentals of trying to draw contact, because his Fat's explosiveness is going to do all the work itself. I mean, I wonder what Coach Skin's first impression of how Fat Hill's explosiveness was on the court. I wonder what his first impression of that was. And in any way you can, or not any way you can, but I will say this, in any way I can, I am trying to get Tony Skin on my podcast. I know that is a very tall task, but I would love to have him on the podcast and talk to him about George Mason basketball, considering that, knowing the guy he is, George Mason basketball means everything to him, and it has meant everything to him since the day he was on the court for their Final Four game. So, and then it's just like that. Even though I get nervous and believe that we're gonna lose in the middle of the game, we somehow still manage to find these abnormal ways to win games, and that I believe in us. But another controversial thing that I want to talk about is, I know I've seen it and said it, and absolutely Coach Skin has mentioned it, but just how people believe that our schedule is easy, but it seems like people think of, when I'm seeing our things like our schedule this year, it's like, oh, our schedule's so easy, and we're going to win this many games or that many games. I think that some people are going off these schools' records from last year. Look at this portal era. Everyone's changing teams every year. That was last year. You know, back when we scheduled Virginia Tech, I was like, oh my goodness. Everybody's first impression was like, oh my goodness, we're gonna beat Virginia Tech. No, they get this guy from Europe who's amazing, and Virginia Tech obliterated us from the 3-point line in that game. So I think it's important to it's just important that people, when you're talking about a school's schedule, you just can't think of last year's teams. I know there's a lot more complexity when it comes to the top 25 teams in the country when they're playing the top 25 teams in the country. But then you've got, like George Mason, some of these smaller schools in the A10 or other small schools in the I don't know, the Big South or the Mountain West or whatever. I don't know, but you really have to consider that you don't know what's going to happen. And yes, when coach says that you don't think your record is what it is now at the beginning of the year, like, oh, no way are we going to be this and this. I can absolutely agree with him. When you're bringing in 11 new players, it's very hard to do that. But I trusted us to have a record like this because Tony has brought in 3 new teams over his coaching years at George Mason. Every year, he's brought in basically a new team, and look at this. Every year, they're going to win 20-plus games. It's amazing how a coach like this can bring in so many new players, and for it to click at this rapid pace, I think it is absolutely something you got to honor, and I think it's incredible. I know that I love basketball. I wish I was as knowledgeable about basketball as he was. I know a lot of people wish they were as well. But let's talk about Eagle Bank Arena, man. Oh my goodness, EBA was popping off on Saturday. I was with my best friend. I was with my podcast host. We were having such a good time, and we were obviously all very, very nervous throughout the game. And might I say, I may have lost my voice that day just a little bit. Also going into the game expecting me to lose my voice. It's just, you think about it, it's VCU, it's a big game, but if we win like we did, it's gonna be worth it. And like VCU beating them for the first time and forever. I think it's a great feeling. I think it's a confidence booster, but the unfinished business aspect is that now March 3rd, we got to go to their house and do it again. And then obviously you've got teams like St. Louis and St. Bonaventure and Dayton and George Washington and other teams who are really not that bad and are actually going to be tough matchups. I want to see this A10 conference grow. I want to see this A10 conference with more teams above 500. I want to see a conference like this grow and inch in any way they can closer to the bigger conferences, the Power 5 schools, any of that. I know it absolutely won't happen, but just inching closer and closer and closer is just going to make it that much better. And I know I can't say it enough, but Saturday I had 2 big games I had to watch, and I was definitely nervous, but if I had to win one, in my mind I was like, Mason's got to win this game against VCU. And I'm really glad that we did. And then obviously the Panthers game, it really wasn't that bad. And there's nothing about that Panthers game that I'm complaining about. I'm really not. I really like where we're going with our future. But back to Mason, really proud of these guys, really proud of how quick they can just get things to click. And that's that. And yeah, next game is January 19th at Eagle Bank Arena against George Washington. I think that's going to be a great game. George Washington's record is definitely better than I thought it would be. But I'm definitely excited about not just playing more conference schools, but playing some of these conference schools that have good records multiple times. And with that being said, let's conclude the podcast with my round 2 NFL playoff predictions. Here we go. First, I'm going to go with the Bears and the Rams. So when I'm looking at any of these playoff games now, when you look at the NFL where it's like, oh, the teams that win the playoffs are most likely the teams that are hot going into the playoffs typically win. Oh, I think that's over now. I think you're really going away from that as you're getting deeper in the playoffs. Okay, yeah, Bears, Rams. I think it's going to be a great game. I think I definitely sense some aggressive play calling coming from these coaches. especially Sean McVay. The Bears gotta be ready for fourth down on the defensive end. But I think the Bears defense is going to do exactly what they did in that Packers game. I know the Rams will probably put up a couple touchdowns here and there, but then the Bears are really going to come back, make it a solid game, and then and just I want to see what Caleb Williams has against a super experienced Matthew Stafford in the postseason. With that being said, looking at the Super Bowl now, I'm just going to throw out scores out there. I think this Super Bowl is absolutely up in the air. And I'm going to go with, I know the score. I know if you look back at some of my predictions in the last episode, I know that a lot of the scores were higher than I said. So I'm going to go with, I think it's down to playoff experience. I think the Rams are going to win this one. I think the Rams are going to win 30-24. I think it's going to be a very close game. And then the other side, you got 49ers Seahawks. You got an under. You've got an under available 49ers defense. You've got a Legion of Boom type defense in Seattle. I think that's going to be a defensive gritty battle that is absolutely a must watch for me. Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy going at it. I know this is very hard, but I'm going to say just the Niners and how they've been able to fight. I think the Niners take this 20-16. I think the Juwan Jennings McCaffrey type flea flicker. I think the Niners are gonna cook up some sort of play that like that nobody's expecting. Definitely wouldn't be surprised if that happens again. I think the Seahawks defense is amazing. They've absolutely come back, but I think with the recent playoff experience, I think the Niners take it. Then let's go to the other side, Bills Broncos. So now you've got playoff icons. You've got Josh Allen. You've got Sean Payton. You've got you've got defensive talent as of late. Watching Josh Allen pull off those plays was amazing. It was really amazing. Late in the game against Jacksonville, it was incredible. I know that the Broncos are the number 1 seed. However, I have 2 factors here. I have playoff experience, and with the Bills Broncos, the other factor I have is who has played more recently / how long have the Broncos been on break. I think the Broncos are a little sloppy. I think their defense, I think their defense is going to do what they've been doing all year. The amount of sacks they've been putting up is amazing. I really think Josh Allen gets it done. I'm gonna say 24-20 in favor of the Bills. I think it's gonna be a great game, but Josh Allen is gonna pull it off. The Bills have played much more recently than Denver has, and just that playoff experience overall is just gonna once again come onto the scene like it always does. And then we've got 2 teams who are very young teams, 2 solid defenses. Texans, Patriots. Okay? So obviously, you look at thus far CJ Stroud's career in a nutshell. CJ Stroud was amazing in his first year. In his second year, he was awful. And then in the third year, he started and the with Davis Mills. They started off with C.J. Stroud in there. They started off bad. He got hurt. Davis Mills came in. They gave him some life, and then ever since, the Texans have been on a hot streak. But then you got guys like Drake May, man. Drake May is just playing like masterclass. Figured out that Chargers defense just like that. However, offense wins games. Defense wins championships. Oh my gosh, this is a hard one. I'm gonna say, I really think, I really do think that Josh Allen in the AFC title game is going to have to fight this amazing Texans defense. I think the Texans pull it off, and I think they're not going to do what they did to the Steelers and absolutely come out of nowhere and obliterate them in the last 8 minutes of the game. I'm gonna throw. I'm gonna throw 20-10 out there. I'm gonna throw 20-10 I'm gonna throw 20-10 Texans out there. And those are my second round predictions. I'm excited to watch some football this weekend. And yeah, that's gonna conclude today's show. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.